You guys want to hear something really depressing? All right, so think about this. We're closer to the year 2050 than we are to the year 2000. Do you feel old yet? Sorry, I was cursing every 90s kid there. But anyway, I should be making more videos, but honestly, I'm kind of just absorbed in my day-to-day life. Just a fair warning, I will be making a lot of different points across different subjects, so this video will be a bit messier, and I'll probably ramble a little bit, but I promise I'll make some important points along the way. Normally, I want to stick to just one topic, but this one's going to be less philosophical, more personal. Well, probably not personal, not professional, but it's not like I get paid to do this anyway, so who gives a shit? But you can already tell from my previous videos, I'm focused more on pessimistic philosophy in general, because there's more avenues to explore, and basically I find it more interesting. All right, let's start by talking about current events. So, not too long ago, some popular podcaster got shot and killed. Few blocks away from where I live, actually. And I didn't even know who the hell this guy was, to be honest, but that's not exactly my sphere of information. Honestly, guys, I'm like a cave bear. I come crawling out of my cave to see what's going on in the world. I'm 99% sure it's still snowing outside, and sure enough, I poke my head out and there's a fucking raging blizzard. And then I see the incoming barrage of stupidity on top of that blizzard. And of course, everyone has an immediate opinion. Everyone has a conspiracy, and everyone suddenly becomes an expert. Honestly, guys, one of the major issues is social media is just pure cancer. I know it's cancer, you know it's cancer, but it doesn't matter. Everyone's addicted. Everyone gets information faster than they can process it. They just instantly react without reflecting, without checking, without saying something like, yeah, I don't know. But most people can't just admit they know something, or rather that they don't know something, excuse me. But social media, it's like the fast food garbage of information. Now, yeah, it's convenient, but honestly, when's the last time you read something off of social media that actually helped make your life better? And maybe I'm wrong, but I haven't used it in years. I can only assume it's gotten worse. Social media is like that fungi cordyceps from The Last of Us. Okay. I mean, sure, you're instantly connected to everyone, but you're also a fungal zombie. And that's not the trade-off I'd take. But actually, you're not even directly connected to everyone, because half of you hate the other people who are also infected. So it's more like, social media is more like, here, I'll just tell you a dream I had the other night really quick, so I can give you a better analogy. So in this dream, there were these extremely aggressive hornets. They would hunt these people down and try to burrow in their flesh, especially their face. For some reason, it'd target their face. And they'd use these stingers to numb their victims and drug them into this delirious state. And because it was a dream, they weren't just hornets. They were these weird hybridization of spider plus hornet. So they would spin these webs in people's skin to hold their skin together, to hold the flesh together from just falling apart. But still, they were infected with something. They lost their autonomy, their skin was sort of mottled and falling apart, but still held together by these sticky webs. So these people look like these gelatinous creatures with skin sloughing off like viscous, syrupy miasma. The weird part was that these bugs never targeted me, but they went and infected probably everyone else and just ignored me. I watched it all unfold. It's like they wanted a single witness or something. Anyway, then the dream turned bad, but I'll probably get banned on YouTube if I go into that part. So you get the point. That's what social media is like. I'm the hibernating cave bear that comes out and sees these weird infected humans eating each other out in that blizzard. But there's no conspiracy, guys. You have this mentally ill loser desperate for attention who targets the nearest influencer that goes around grifting, spewing out hateful ideology. I mean, does this actually surprise anyone? Really? I don't agree with what happened. How does anyone find this surprising? Isn't this exactly what we saw with Trump last July? I mean, not to mention the school shootings that happened the same day that somehow get less attention. I mean, I don't know why anyone's shocked anymore. I mean, there's crackheads that'll shoot someone over $20, and somehow we're supposed to find this surprising. There's probably no conspiracy, guys. The most boring explanation is usually the correct one. Honestly, believe what you want, though. I don't really care. Whatever the case, that's not really what I'm talking about today. Mental illness, attention, boredom, and division. That's the society we've cultivated. It's like if you throw chum in shark-infested waters and jump in, just don't be surprised when one of them bites you. You don't have to agree with the sharks, but that's just exactly what you should expect, right? But see, social media is just one form of cancer. A bigger problem is that we're drowning in abundance. For example, did you guys know that, okay, this is off topic, but did you guys know that within 2 minutes on any given day, we'll have taken more pictures than all the pictures taken in the 19th century? Just 2 minutes. So, and then I think as for the 20th century, it's a rough estimate would be about a year's worth of pictures for 100 years last century. And I'm not saying taking pictures is bad, but you get my point. We're getting bigger, more information, more options, more everything. Way faster too, way faster. But we're all just pretending we're not dead inside. Well, some more than others, and lots of people enjoy life, and that's good to hear, honestly. But overall, we're drowning in excess. But the paradox is that we also have nothing, or rather we feel like we have nothing. It's like we spend all of our time working for all this shit that we don't need, and sure enough, we die with nothing. This is why people say we're not overpopulated, but when you put more people closer together, you give them instant communication, instant reactions, people can't manage themselves. We have cramping issues. I don't know, the world used to feel a lot bigger. More mystery, more wonder, more separation, more patience. And we're born too early to go beyond Earth. Now, everything here, everything modern is just a tool, a function, a profit margin, data collection. And all it takes is one mentally ill person, not even mentally ill, just a radical believer to ruin it for a group. That's also why you shouldn't have kids, because even if most of them end up living decent lives, only a few will ruin it for most of them anyway. So our current policies are dog shit. The public is dog shit. Uneducated people are dog shit. Rich people are dog shit, especially. So Plato and Socrates were right, guys. Uninformed people shouldn't be allowed to vote. Like, if you can't explain most of your preferred candidate's policies in basic terms, you just shouldn't be allowed. And you have to explain what the hell a tariff is, for example, before you're allowed to propose it. It's just the fact that most Americans are overconfident in their opinions. People are motivated by group loyalty and identity. Instead of picking the best policies, they pick one side or the other. And I think there was a study done that showed about 60% of people said more information made it more difficult to be well informed. I'm actually surprised it wasn't at least 80%. But ironically, far fewer people admit uncertainty. So that is the paradox. But the Electoral College is dog shit as well. The two-party system is dog shit. Voting without ranked choice is dog shit. We're far too populated, dense, and interconnected not to have at least a popular vote. Anyway, I'm sure you've heard all these complaints before. People feel pressured to take a side, to instantly react, to have an immediate opinion, to feel included. What is this inclusion? To be a part of society, even if the internet is nothing like real life. Most people need time and distance, healthier distractions. Anyway, that's how I see it. I wish I had the ability to pick up every person and put them in cerebral stasis of some kind. Just for every person about to say or do something stupid, I'd put them on a nice grassy slope on the Swiss Alps and just make them sit there quietly for 30 minutes. Just a timeout for 30 minutes, at least 30 minutes. Turns out when you're sitting there quietly, silently, you're less likely to do something stupid. So, turns out when you give yourself time and distance, you can fix a lot of your own problems. Not everything, obviously, but just some of the more immediate problems. Turns out that that's impossible when you're addicted to social media. Guys, honestly, okay, here's what we do. We just give me complete control of the internet. Let me turn it off for a few hours, and suddenly all these terminally online addicts will become the most productive people you've ever seen. You guys underestimate the power of boredom and time and distance. I promise. I'll just cut off the internet with the exception of emergency services, and we can just say that aliens attacked Earth. We'll just escalate our problems to another invisible troublemaker. We'll just create a long chain of problem escalation until a meteor hits us. Problem solved, guys. We figured it out. Instead of fighting each other, we'll just invent the devil. Because you can't force people to go touch grass. So yes, I have a few ideas, and yes, I am just joking with that. But let's say we give AI total control. And then we enforce UBI, universal basic income. Veterans get double benefits. Otherwise, you can opt out of the future dystopia. And I don't know, we'll create a beaver metropolis. We tried, guys, but we failed. We tried, guys. Humanity can't do it. It was a good effort. Not really, but I mean, we get A for effort. So it's time to give beavers the planet. Let's give them a chance instead. All right. They're engineers. They're generally pretty harmless. So I think I'll start my political campaign. I'm going to call it Worship the Beaver. All right. But jokes aside, okay. Again, jokes aside, serious policies I'd implement, assuming the world wasn't a complete shit show. But at this point, in theory, I would rather have an AI run simulations on society and let them pick the best policies. I would just let the AI go over thousands and thousands and thousands of simulations. Actually, they can just run millions at this point and see, which has the least deleterious effects. But we do that until they became self-aware. But I really wouldn't worry about AI becoming self-aware. Some people think that AI is self-aware once it aims for self-preservation. But at that point, I'd maybe call it semi-aware. Once it consistently seeks methods of self-destruction, then I'd probably call that fully aware. I don't know. I think that's the natural evolution of intelligence. But I don't know, guys. The world used to feel a lot bigger. Even just before the internet really took off, it felt like things were a little bit more interesting and mysterious. So all this connection turns all the colors of everything, all these different colors, into one giant gray shade of disappointing mediocrity. And actually, mediocrity is probably too high a standard these days. Since we're talking about policies, and I'm supposed to be talking about anti-natalism, here's what I think. Now, first, now you know who I'm here in Utah, okay? Land of the big families, the hyper-natalist haven. Now, if you don't know anything about Utah, and since you've listened to this much already, let me just explain it to you from my perspective real fast, because this is related to anti-natalism, okay? The point of what I'm going to say is to describe the culture and why Utah probably is going to be one of the most resilient places for anti-natalism, okay? This is the main reason I don't mostly talk about anti-natalism, because I'm the worst possible person for this job. It's not like I'm a street preacher or anything, and I'm also in the worst possible place for this. Okay, so what is Utah? Just so you understand. Okay, have you ever seen one of those movies or shows where the main character stumbles into this isolated village in a post-apocalypse world where it shouldn't be peaceful, this one isolated part, but it somehow is, and there's something wrong beneath the surface, but you can't figure it out? Like, there's happy children playing, singing songs, dancing. The women are having fun. They're making apple pies. The men are all joking with each other while having a barbecue. It's like most people's fantasy of an idyllic dream with the white picket fence and everything. And Utah loves sugar and baked goods, so even the roads are practically paved with Turkish delights. But then the main character gets too comfortable. They stay too long. And then they see that during a full moon, the villagers have some sort of weird ritualistic sacrifice. And they're all willing somehow, but it's just weird. Like, they all consent, but yeah, it's just disturbing. The villagers willingly sacrifice themselves, and then, in a strange ritual of respect, they treat the corpses like divine gods, even as they decay for weeks on end. Okay, it's sort of weird like that. And you might be able to refuse their rituals, but you also don't really want to be on their shit list. So, yeah, that's Utah. And me, what about me? I'm the crazy hermit who lives alone out in the woods, just beyond their reach, but I still have to interact with them to get certain things. So they tolerate me, but all I do is read my books and talk to my pet squirrels so they leave me alone. So yeah, that's me. I'm the hermit. And then the main character might meet this hermit and, they get scared off, but in the end it turns out he's actually the most normal person in the area. Now, I know I'm exaggerating, and to be honest, these days it's not really like that, especially in Salt Lake City. I think it's actually fewer Mormons than non-Mormons now. But here in the valley where that shooting happened, yeah, it's still kind of like that. But religious or not, people still have a shit ton of kids here. So from my analogy, you can see why it's difficult for antinatalism to work well. It's herd behavior. Now, a lot of people around here might get pissed off that I'm talking shit about where I live, and yeah, it's not that bad. I mean, it's really not that bad, but I mean, it depends on where you live. I'll just point out what is bad, though, in Utah, because it is hard to see at first, I admit. Everyone's generally pretty nice, and certain aspects of life are nice. Like, nobody ever steals my packages. It's generally safer. But again, under the surface, turns out some neighbor beats his wife, and you didn't know about it until after it was handled. Turns out another neighbor is cooking meth. Turns out someone else down the road is abusing their adopted kids, some of which are disabled. And it turns out that someone you thought you knew well beats his dog. Turns out someone in your company only promotes his best friends from his church. Turns out merit has very little value in Utah. Turns out almost everyone you thought was happy is overdosing on prescription medication, and they're just one bad day from ending it all. Turns out you had a roommate that hated life and quietly starved himself to death because it was the only way he knew how. And it shouldn't have to be that way, you guys. It shouldn't have to be that way. We need better options. And joining a bullshit religion is not the answer. And yeah, this is all anecdotal, yes. And that was all true. And yes, I've actually seen worse. But let's look at the overall scope of Utah. So forget about me, because honestly, it's not about me. So first, Utah is one of the most corrupt places as far as nepotism and family control. Scamming is also prevalent. Utah was basically formed through nepotism and scamming. So have you guys ever seen those online advertisements or billboards telling you, you can make $5,000 working at home, join us. And join now, you'll get a 2-week bonus if you refer your friends, and if your friends refer their friends. Yeah. It's not just MLMs, but other shady looking investments. And they constantly use buzzwords so it's less suspicious, or at least they think it is. Yeah, so most of those companies operate within Utah, and usually they skirt the lines of the law so they barely get away with it. And this is where you see fraud, exploiting trust, especially with the elderly, MLMs, those are just pyramid schemes, shell companies, technical legalities to abuse the statute of limits, litigation delays, insider contracts, wage theft, corporate looting, financial contributions that funnel to families or religious or spiritual places. I mean, I can go on and on. So beneath the beautiful cities here, the sewers are running thick with corruption. Utah has more MLMs per capita than any other state. And since I'm shitting on Utah, I'll just lay it all out. And this will save me from doing a future video also. Okay, so first, I get why people are Mormons. I really do. I'm of the belief that you can basically describe the essence of anything using only 2 words. Maybe you have to borrow a word from another language, but Mormonism, 2 words. Ontological lullaby. See, it's a better pitch than traditional Christianity. You get to become your own God. You get to live with your family forever. I mean, if you could get people to believe that, wouldn't you be happy? Wouldn't you be spitting out as many kids as possible? Logically, you're creating more gods, more perfections. I mean, it's kind of a perfected method of Christianity. Well, besides the forever part. So when I asked Mormons when I was a young kid that I didn't want to become a god because that seemed like the worst form of torture, I already knew I didn't want to live forever. I asked them if I could opt out of their placement system. I guess they didn't really have an answer for that question. So I suppose I'm stuck in their middle tier system, which is still terrible. But anyway, the church is provably false, so I don't really have to worry about that. Now, I have met plenty of Mormons that kind of do know it's bullshit. They just know, but it's convenient. So with these people, I might say something like, well, if you were wrong and life was just this, right, over and over, would you still choose to have kids, assuming they might come to a similar conclusion? And then I just leave the question like that. Let them do a little thinking on their own. So I won't just blindly shit on the Mormons either. Sometimes Mormons are the victims. Like, there's been cases where some Mormon investors got defrauded with their church money from other people. So it does go in all directions in Utah. Another example is the church didn't disclose their investment assets, more than once actually. And yeah, they got fined millions of dollars, but clearly it's profitable because it's not the first time. It's just the cost of business. Also offshoots of Mormonism, Mormon Hydra head, if you will, where another church group in Utah was charged with welfare fraud and financial schemes. And these people, they're taught not to question this, their followers. Utah is a culture of silence and fear. If you doubt your leaders, you're seen as having a lack of faith. To me, honestly, that's a compliment. But These issues are just financial, right? Money can't buy happiness, right? Surely you can teach your kids that money isn't everything. So all these problems I'm shitting on, okay, well, it's just financial, right? All right, how about Utah is also rated the worst state for women's equality, especially women of color, and for the workplace environment. See, Utah prides themselves on cutthroat businesses. They fight for the little guy, which really just means small businesses or usually bigger businesses, and so employees get the shit end of the stick. Utah is also ranked 10th worst state to work for benefits, protections, unions, and so on. So it's one of the worst for that. So antinatalism is also weak here because it also means women have less incentive to get a full-time job and therefore prefer, quote unquote prefer, to be a stay-at-home mother. It means less abuse. Now, Utah isn't ranked absolute last in sexual assault for women, but it is one of the worst, top 10 I believe. As far as women's overall safety, Utah is ranked second to last. That's rape, assault, even depression. Honestly, I don't even want to know who ranked last, but it's probably some fucking shithole like Mississippi. As far as overall quality of life for men and women, top 10 worst states. So beneath the happy glow of family picnics and board games, there's still a strong poison lingering. Like, being in a large, tight-knit family doesn't solve the issue. They think it does, but it's a coping mechanism. At least 1 in 3 women who are married are abused by their spouse. 1 in 5 kids will be sexually abused by the time they become an adult, and this is actually the same percentage as mental illness. And that's just what's reported. Remember, the culture is built on silence and fear. Religious communities are known for suppressing real numbers. And with depression, Utah is one of the highest ranked states of overdosing on prescription drugs. If Utah had more fentanyl, they'd definitely use it. The weird thing about Utah is they like to follow the law like it's not in their blood to be disobedient, which goes back to religion. So instead they find legal ways to do what the rest of the world already does. It's kind of like how some of them think that anal sex doesn't count as actual sex. I'm surprised Utah only ever had Winter Olympics here, not the Summer Olympics, because Utah has to be ranked 1 for mental gymnastics. I'm not exaggerating. I think I've mentioned this before, guys, but I've had a guy stare at me straight in the face before and tell me there isn't a single contradiction or incorrect fact in the Book of Mormon. It's honestly wild. Anyway, statistics, where were we? Utah has the second highest percentage of adults living with mental illness, and about half of the younger side of women of color are depressed, and that's just what's reported. Religion doesn't help. Why? Because reports show that LDS and non-LDS people have the same rate of depression here, actually slightly more for Mormons. Guys, we have a problem. We have a real fucking problem. And this is actually a world problem, in my opinion. Utah is just more concentrated, at least in this aspect. Oh, right. And if you're LGBTQ living in Utah, you're probably fucked. I mean, if you need a hug, I can probably do that for you, but besides that, no one can really help you. Oh, and Utah is also ranked last for average air quality. We have what's called the inversion here. Pollution gets trapped in the valley during the cold winter months. Imagine bringing children into the world while living in one of the most toxic environments in the entire country. But you see the geography, and yeah, it's beautiful, but it is a double-edged sword. Also, apparently Utah is supposed to be the top 5 loneliest states. Now, imagine you're some outcast, you're multiracial or gay or handicapped. Basically, you should expect to live a very lonely life here. But hey, at least Utah businesses are thriving, right? And this is at the cost of everything else, of course. To be honest with you guys, I'm surprised there isn't more violence than what we see. I genuinely expect to read the newspaper and see that yet another queer kid in a wheelchair has terrorized a group of Mormons. I guess people hurt themselves instead, though. Then the lack of sex education leaves kids even more confused and depressed. Then you have a bunch of incels because women don't want to talk to anyone. I mean, why would they? But on the bright side, teen pregnancy has dropped. But Utah, it's pretty restrictive when it comes to abortion rights. So they believe that life is precious, but once you're born here, suddenly people aren't so generous. Suddenly, you get all the issues I just described. Also, Utah ranks as one of the worst places for benefits and public welfare expenditure, and we have an extremely weak healthcare system. Recently, Utah became the first state to ban fluoride in water, so you get RFK Jr. like-minded people who have anti-science views that are overall harmful for everyone in general. It'd be really nice if we had a 2 separate water system in Utah, so we could at least choose which source we prefer. For the record, yes, we don't need fluoride in the water as long as you brush and floss, but The reason they passed this bill is all about control and money. Now, dentists will profit off the poor people. Now, pharmacists can make more money off fluoride supplements. The bottom line is that fluoride is safe, cheap, and effective, but it's all about controlling the narrative, because science bad. Now, most of the world doesn't fluoridate their water, but most of the world doesn't need it because they don't overconsume processed garbage every day. So the policy itself isn't terrible, it's the motivation behind it. Utah has every reason to create a well-balanced ecosystem for its taxpayers also, but it prides itself on the overall economic success. But what happens with the money here, I would argue, is more corrupt than most states. Like, Utah has a flock of golden geese, and we choose to cramp these geese inside these tiny cages so they shit out golden eggs just for the business owners, instead of, say, letting them run around free range and laying eggs for everyone. It's greatly disappointing, you guys. Now, just so you know I'm not completely biased, I'll point out a few good things. Utah is one of the best places for volunteerism, for overall health, for internet access, decent education. But again, these are averages, right? It really doesn't address the inequalities. And yeah, the middle class is shrinking. But anyway, even comparing Utah to the rest of the United States is pretty embarrassing. Because the overall standard is it's really fucking sad. We'll just put it that way. It's really fucking disappointing. And the lived experience will always feel worse than the numbers show. So anyway, guys, if you listen to all that and you still think it's a good idea to have kids, I don't know. I just think you're crazy. At least I would propose a compromise. I would extend an olive branch and ask that you do a trial run if you're considering having children, okay? You adopt a kid. Maybe you adopt a pet first, okay? Adopt a pet. If you think you can handle that, adopt a kid so you can skip the first difficult years, right? You get a 12-year-old kid or something if you really want a kid. Well, all the years are difficult, I guess. But anyway, adopt a kid. And if that kid makes it to 18 years old and that kid has no regrets and you have no regrets, well, then adopt another kid, right? So that's my compromise. Otherwise, get a dog. I don't know. Get a pet rock or something. Those used to be really cool in the 90s. Anyway, is all of this pessimistic? Yup. Does it sound depressing? Yup. Did I say anything incorrect? Nope. One more point I'd like to make. I think a lot of you might think I'm sort of misanthropic, and I would say no. I mean, I have a bias, obviously, but whatever intelligence happened to be doing this life business at the top of the food chain or the intelligence chain, whoever would be doing this, they really wouldn't be doing any better. Again, I think that intelligence has a tendency towards self-destructiveness. But before that, nature always rewards shortcuts. Everything we see today is a culmination of shortcuts. And when all the shortcuts everyone abuses is tied to a global network, then intelligence shorts itself out, so to speak. It can't just be total self-destructiveness, right? It has to keep going a little bit. Now, we do carry optimized protection, so life is manageable, but I do think that in general, suffering and intelligence outpaces protective barriers. Anyway, that ultimately goes back to my philosophy, so I'll leave that there for now. But these people, it's difficult to reason with them. Ultimately, I'm diplomatic about it because I don't really have any other choice, but even so, I don't think you're going to change anyone's opinion by being an asshole, directly to them anyway. But diplomatically, I'd say you could reason with some of these people that they should just adopt instead of having another kid. Like if you're going to speak their language, you could say something like, whether that's literally your kid or not, you can't deny them from getting to heaven. You're helping them do that. You're all supposed to be children of God, right? So why should their origin matter? So you could judo their arguments into ways of fewer children. But what you're ultimately dealing with is a group of people that say shit like, live, laugh, and love. I'm pretty sure Ted Bundy said that too. Or at least he felt that. In fact, I'm pretty sure he did some of his deeds not too far from where I am right now, but Ted Bundy's an extreme example. So now you have to convince people what level of danger is acceptable. And the argument once again comes down to whether or not people see life as a net negative or positive. So from personal experience, this is where the discussion ends. The thing is, you guys, people here have such a high confidence that life is a massive net positive, and you don't want them to be miserable, but genuinely, guys, if being Mormon means it would improve humanity's well-being, I don't care if 99% of the world became Mormon. I don't. But that's not what would happen, not reasonably. It's just a different form of coping. See, as long as two intelligent things exist, you have conflict. It's that simple. And I don't know if you hear that background ranchero music, but yeah, that's literally proof right now that that's happening because I fucking hate that music. So anyway, it's just that they live in a bubble and all the problems I talked about earlier, they remain under the surface. Guys, the thing is with some people, you can't just show them Benatar's asymmetry argument about good and bad, and they take one look at the grid and go, oh yeah, I get it now. I shouldn't have kids. All I needed to see was that grid. It all makes sense now. No. They just say, yeah, I totally disagree with you, and maybe some people shouldn't have kids, but I know I can raise my kids in a stable environment. And then they proceed to have 10 religious kids, and the cycle continues. But by the way, I think Benatar's asymmetry argument is one of the weaker arguments for anti-natalism, especially when you consider that subjectivity must exist. But I think it's good enough to convince some people, so cool. All right, it works. I don't have to improve the arguments. If that's strong enough, cool. That's one less job for me. But what I found is that most people are guided by feelings, and most people who won't have kids were already on a trajectory in life in such a way that pretty much any argument would work for them. It aligned with their lived experience. The problem is when most people start conflating their own lived experience with someone else's experience they assume must be as good or better than their own. That's the problem. They'd make an assumption and hope for the best, but there's no real insurance policy if they're wrong. And yeah, it would be absurd to ask for such a thing, but that's why you don't do it in the first place. But being who I am, living here, it's like putting anti-natalism on max difficulty settings. Again, people generally leave me alone, which is nice. I mean, there's a few good things, but living in Utah, it works for me personally. Anyway, as you can see from my channel, I'm stuck in a weird spot right now. I like to talk about philosophy in general. I like to make video essays on interesting subjects, but it's also impossible to remove who I am from the videos. So I guess I'm somewhere in between of making vlogs and spending time trying to research and write about interesting topics in general. But I guess the central idea is always going to be philosophical pessimism. Now, maybe I could just create a completely separate channel where it has nothing to do with me, and it's just these philosophical deep dives, these video essays. Keep it separate from the less professional videos and vlogs like this one, or I guess recordings. But honestly, YouTube used to be a cool place where each channel was someone's entire identity, and they could post anything and everything. There was personality and soul to it. Now it's like every channel is just a separate business venture. Otherwise, it's just AI garbage. Guys, if you see someone using AI pictures, I think that's fine. Because honestly, there's so much copyright shit right now. But it's especially fine if they're using AI and they're not really profiting off of it. But as soon as you see that VHS type film grain filter, you know what I'm talking about. That film grain. That's the sign that you're watching absolute dog shit. You know exactly what I'm talking about. You can be certain that that person behind the channel has never picked up a fucking book in their life. Which is fine for the most part, but at least I'm honest with what I say. Anyway, with anti-natalism, there's really not a whole lot to talk about. At least, nothing that anyone else has already said better. For me, it's just one small piece of a puzzle. It's important, yes, but it's really not that interesting by itself. Not for me anyway. For me, again, it's pessimism in general. Like, I might be doing one more video on extinctionism and maybe something else, but even that I consider categorically separate. And yeah, to be honest with you guys, I've been lazy lately. I've written a lot towards a lot of subjects in my own separate projects, but I should be a whole lot faster. Honestly, I have very little motivation for much these days. My problem is I know I set certain goals to keep myself occupied and to get lost in the habit of something. But when I know that the goals are not ends to themselves, because you already understand that you don't really need to fulfill them, there's only so much you can delude yourself with some kind of pointless task. Like, I had quite a few goals earlier this year, including some impossible ones, literally impossible. And actually, it did keep me focused for a bit, but at some point you reach a place of good enough, and it's not really satisfying, or you fail and you fail and you fail, because that's the impossible task. And you already know you're going to fail, and you even shape your ethics around that failure. But I mean, at some point, you're just going to break. Like, you're just going to have to create something new. And then you're just asking yourself, what the fuck am I doing? So now I just feel like I'm juggling pointless chores. But I can definitely see why very few people would watch this. I don't take it personally. Philosophy, I mean, in general, it can be pretty boring. I mean, yeah, it's mostly boring. I mean, ultimately, you have a life to live, so you can't just spend 12 hours a day reading arguments about the nature of everything. I mean, you can, but for me, it's about dissecting people. It's about learning about people's coping mechanisms. It's like a battle royale where ideas clash and you can see out who comes on top. So imagine a boxing match, but in a purely abstract manner. I think that's way more interesting than people literally punching each other. But unlike sports, most sports or events, you can participate in a way and modify it yourself. In philosophy, there's no upper limit. The skill ceiling is super high. You just pick the most interesting ideas and you flesh them out as far as you want, because why not? So I think going forward, as I've said before, I am going to focus on philosophy in general. I don't even like it that much, to be honest, but the search for truth never ends, well. I mean, it's just what I find more interesting. It's what keeps me occupied, right? Now, I do have another cool idea coming around the corner, but I don't like to spend hours and hours of editing videos with hundreds of pictures. So I'm going to try something else in one of my video essays in the near future. It could be on a separate channel or this, I'm not sure. I'll probably just keep it on this one for now. And it could be the best of two different worlds or the worst of two separate worlds. I don't know yet. I guess we'll see. Anyway, I was going to talk about ethics today, but I'll just have to keep that separate. Pretty much every system of ethics is garbage and or baseless. So I've been crafting a little bit of that. That'll take at least as long as this. I really shouldn't pack too much in one video. Anyway, despite all that, I hope everyone has a good day. Don't be an asshole, guys. There's already too many of those. So, for now, I'll call it a video. Take care. See ya.